Hello and welcome to Sleep is My Waking Passion, the podcast where we get real about sleep and how it shapes your life. I'm Dr. Alison Kole, a triple-boarded pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine physician who's learned to thrive despite having chronic insomnia. And now I'm here to help you do the same. I have a very, very cool guest. We have finally, Kristen Cascio, we have finally been able to connect. Translation B on the podcast. I have been hitting up Kristen. I first met her, when was it? Sleep 2024, right? I think I first met you last year. Then we reconnected at Sleep 2025. I was like, yeah, you should be on the podcast. She's like, yeah, I'll be on the podcast. And then it never happened, which is my fault because I didn't stalk her enough. And then I was like, oh no, I'm not passing up this opportunity. I have to say, Kristen, one of the funnest parts of what I've been doing in the podcast is it's really cool to connect with sleep experts and even experts who have other areas of expertise, nutrition, etc. But what I really love is what we're going to do today in this episode, which is talk about what it's like to actually live with a sleep disorder. At the end of the day, I think that's what people really resonate with. And through her story, hopefully anyone who's listening is going to put a pause and say, oh, do I know someone like this? Do I suspect someone is like this? Do I suspect I even have this? And what does that mean? Because I do think that if I'm going to speak frankly about women especially, I think there's a stigma associated with this concept of having sleep apnea. And if I may pause for a second and just share with you a quick story. I recently saw a patient who had this crazy history of migraine. She went to freaking Mayo. Thin, young woman. Mm-hmm. And the reason she was finally coming to me is she's like, I don't want my husband to divorce me. He says I'm just basically snoring everywhere. Like, doesn't matter what position. When I'm falling asleep watching TV, I'm snoring. I could be sitting up. I could be on my side. I could be like everywhere I go, I am snoring. She had other symptoms. Mm-hmm. But her main thing is that she was like, I love my husband and I'm making him crazy. And what really struck me though, was that I was like, you have this crazy history of migraines. I'm like, did you have a sleep study before? And she said, no. And what was fascinating was they had measured her neck. They saw her age. They looked at her comorbidities. Now, this is a number of years ago. She actually was pathologically sleepy when I saw her based on her Epworth, but it was like 10. It wasn't anything crazy. Still considered to be sleepy. But she didn't have as many symptoms. Mm-hmm. But again, she had migraines. And that was such a huge tip off that something was going on. Yet when they did all the classic things you do to use a questionnaire, because it sounds to me like if they're measuring her neck size, they may have been thinking along the lines of a stop bang, right, or something like that. And they're like, well, I think they really felt like they couldn't justify it. They're like, well, you're not really having any of the symptoms. And that really had me pause and go, wow, I'm prepping for a lecture at an event that's coming up in September called the Women's Health Annual Visit, or WAVE. It's a continuing medical education event. Anybody can go. It's going to be in New York City on September 20th. I'm pretty sure it's like the first year they've actually talked about sleep in women, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. And the focus was OSA. And it's my baby because it was a grant that I was able to help write to get funding.
Amazing.
My section is all about what the limitations of these types of questionnaires are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And not only that, what the common symptoms for women are versus what they may be for men, and they are different. And it can be very, very vague, which was in the case of you. Mm-hmm. So I just needed to showcase that because I knew we were going into this, and then serendipitously, I'm talking to this woman, and I could see her face almost be like, oh my God, like, you know, thinking back, this could have been the cause of her migraines, or at least a significant contributing factor, maybe not the whole piece, but a contributing factor for many, many years. And yet, because she didn't meet a certain mold, she wasn't tested. And part of that could be that they couldn't get insurance to pay for it. I'm going to just wax intellectual and say I've had situations where it's ended up being a peer-to-peer because the symptoms are so vague and someone doesn't fit into the mold, that I'm like, boxing gloves, put them back on. It's time for Dr. Kole to get in a fight. That's what's got to happen. And even then, sometimes it's a really hard push to get what I want. So without further ado, everyone, you're going to be hearing about Kristen's story. She is a clinical social worker, a patient advocate, and she is a world traveler. She's originally from Boston, Tufts School of Medicine in the house right over here. I'm not a double jumbo. I went to Barnard initially, but I did get what I love about Tufts, and I really have to say it shaped my future, is that they have a combined dual degree program. They have an MD, MPH program you can finish in 4 years.
Oh, wow.
That's the program that I did. And it really molded how I thought about patients. And it really gave me this perspective of having the ability to be kind of like, what's the big picture? And then kind of zoom into that individual and how that individual fits into that big picture. And I think it's one of the reasons that I got so fascinated with this idea of like, wait a minute, can I have a bigger platform than just the patient-to-patient encounter? Not that that's not hugely meaningful for me, but dude, for us to be able to talk and put this out there and have as many voices out there talking about sleep and the importance of sleep health, huge. So Kristen was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea at the age of 31. Ladies listening, at the age of 31, after 15 years of unexplained symptoms. Let's pause for a second and have that sink in. 15 years of unexplained symptoms.
Yeah,
okay.
I was a little 16-year-old teenager.
Look at her.
Little
This is not someone who you'd go, oh my, of course she has horrible sleep apnea. Look at her. No.
Which is why I never even knew a thing about it. We'll get into that, I'm sure, but I knew nothing about sleep apnea or sleep disorders in general until I landed eventually in a sleep disorder clinic myself.
OMG, right? So this is a really, really important story because there are millions and millions of people who are in your situation, Kristen, and they are going to be like, what are you talking about? How can that be me? Right? So she's been an avid CPAP user since her diagnosis. She shares her travels with her CPAP on social media. Her CPAP bag has the most epic level of badges that you can possibly imagine. It's super cool. And she hopes to encourage others to never feel self-conscious about their diagnosis. Yes. Kristen regularly contributes to patient advocacy efforts. Yes, she does. And she leverages her expertise in mental health to raise awareness for earlier screening and detection of sleep disorders. She's also a member of Project Sleep's expert advisory board. Anyone who's listening who follows knows how deeply supportive I am of Project Sleep, particularly since it's such an all-encompassing organization. It's really about all the sleep disorders, including rare, right? And the founder, Julie Flieger, is amazing and really just a force of nature to be able to have accomplished everything she's accomplished with the diagnosis of narcolepsy. So I'm going to have all of her social media links. Kristen, welcome to the show. Please tell me about these 15 years of these symptoms. Like, what?
I know, it seems unbelievable. It still seems unbelievable as I look back on it. But, you know, my journey, I have learned in the past 5 years of being on CPAP and sharing my journey on social media, I've connected with so many people that have similarly long paths to diagnosis of any sleep disorder, whether it's sleep apnea, narcolepsy, what have you. And I just always think, you know, that's so much time that we're all suffering, so much time that we're doing what we have to do to get through our daily lives. Because if anyone's living with a chronic health issue or something that's undiagnosed, you know something is wrong, you have no choice but to push through your days and get done what you need to get done. And that's kind of what my life was for a lot of periods of time. So starting around 16. It might have been earlier than that, but that's when I really remember being so tired all of the time. And that was my main symptom. Later on, there were other symptoms that I could have picked up on if I had known a little bit more about the signs and symptoms, but I never considered that I had a sleep disorder because all of my symptoms were daytime symptoms. I didn't have any of the nighttime symptoms that you might expect from a sleep disorder. I really didn't snore. I didn't really gasp for air. I didn't think I was waking up all throughout the night, but I was. I just didn't realize it at the time.
I want to clarify something about the term tired. I am specifically using that term because you mentioned it, and it is a very common description for women that often gets poo-pooed toward, well, you're in a lot of sports. You're competitive. You want to try to go to medical school, so you're studying late at night. What else can we? You had kids, and now you have a baby at home. You're perimenopausal.
Your lifestyle.
It's your lifestyle. You're working and you're a mom. It doesn't matter what walk of life you are. Just if you were to look at that term tired,
right.
One of the things that I have seen in my clinical practice, but also has been described in literature, is tired can mean a lot of different things. So can you kind of elaborate on what tired meant for you? Was it truly like I can't keep my eyes open, sleepy?
Yes. And I have, again, one of the reasons why it's so important to raise awareness is because the general public, and that was me for 15 years, didn't really know the language that's associated with sleep disorders. I'm sure we'll talk about sleepiness or excessive daytime sleepiness. That's what I was experiencing, but I had never heard that term before. So I would say either I'm tired or I have no energy or I'm fatigued, because I thought fatigued and sleepy were the same thing. And I'm still sussing out that that's not necessarily the same. There are some differences between those things, but I had never, ever heard the term sleepy. It didn't feel like a true medical term to me. Maybe I would have gotten a little bit further if I had known that earlier, but it was really, truly every morning when I woke up, maybe once a month, once every couple of months. And I distinctly remember, because it was so surprising to me, I would wake up feeling rested and energized. But every other day I would wake up feeling as if I had not slept at all. And I would drag myself through my day. And I would take many naps. Even starting in high school, my mom would drag me out of bed to get to high school on time, even though I had slept an appropriate number of hours, at least 8. I was usually clocking 8 to 10. And I would go to school, get through what I needed to do, come home, take a nap, get up to eat and do my homework and go back to sleep. And then if I had other things going on, I was involved in clubs or what have you, I would do those things as well. But I was always pulling myself through this sleepy fog. And there was a lot of that, a lot of brain fog as well, that, you have no choice but to keep going. And I was trying to find answers. I was constantly bringing up to my PCP, to specialists, to everyone, that there wasn't something wasn't right. There was something wrong with my energy. And we were just constantly going like this. It was just being missed. And I think there's a lot of reasons why it was missed, but certainly because you wouldn't expect a 16, 17, 18-year-old young girl who doesn't think she has any problems with her sleep to have a sleep disorder.
Let's take a pause. Very, very important teaching point from a patient to any provider listening here. And also to other patients. So what you described is, I didn't know the lingo, right? And I think that's a really, really important message, because I think we have an optics problem in healthcare. Yeah. And it's how we communicate, because we learn the language. There is nothing wrong with knowing a medical language. We do speak a different language. In fact, among specialties, we speak different language. So if I try to read a note from an orthopedic surgeon, they ain't going to be able to read Dr. Kole's sleep notes, and I ain't going to be able to read their notes. I'm going to be like, what does all this mean? Okay. So it happens even across medicine. But something that's really, really key is, I want anyone listening to pause and remember, if you mean I am sleepy, Don't worry about when it is, or just, I am sleepy. Okay. If you're the patient and you know you're sleepy, it's okay to say I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
Again, conversely, if you're a clinician and you hear the word tired, you hear the word fatigued, I want you to really sit down and go, yeah, but they're feeling this during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're saying, my sleep feels fine, I'm getting enough hours, I don't know why I'm so tired during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Your threshold for considering a sleep disorder shouldn't be up here. It should be down here.
Yeah.
Because sleep, especially if there is a disorder, the one thing we're good at is treating disorders. The one thing we learn in medical school is you have a diagnosis and you get a treatment, okay?
Yeah.
Prevention is really a problem. Like, we're not so good at that, keeping people healthy, but we are good at learning about diseases and stuff. So please, 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 if you're listening, make sure that you probe further. And if you're doing your workup and they don't have hypothyroidism and iron deficiency and probably all the other crap that they checked you for, not that it's not relevant.
Yeah.
Okay. It is relevant. Maybe I shouldn't use the word crap. I didn't mean it that way. I wasn't trying to be derogatory, but I am going to argue you have missed the boat with the sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. The way I ended up finally in a sleep physician's office was sort of by accident as like the final rule out, because and I think maybe some people that have never gotten answers will relate to this. I would consistently bring up my symptoms to doctors, but then there would be sometimes that maybe that yearly appointment, I didn't bring it up because I was just so tired of not getting any answers. And then I would get reinvigorated in the next year. I would say, I really need to figure this out, And so
it's your mood too, you only get so much time.
So tired of it. Yeah. So, and I
no
just
pun
had
intended.
Never got, in a different way. So I, was in a specialist's office and they said, well, we've ruled out this, that, blah, 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 the other thing, done all these labs. And I can diagnose you with chronic fatigue syndrome, but I don't really want to do that because then there's no treatment for that. So let's get you a sleep study. And I'm, the most compliant patient on earth. So I was like, sure, let's do it. But I do always think back to that moment, because even as patients, I trust all of my doctors. And like I said, I'm very compliant. So if that particular doctor hadn't said, well, let's get you a sleep study, and just said it's chronic fatigue syndrome and that there's really nothing to do, I would be operating my life that way as if that's what it was. So I always think back to that. I'm so thankful for that doctor, but it could have so easily been missed. And that was 15 years in. So it was already missed 15 years up until that point.
So what other kinds of symptoms? You mentioned brain fog. Obviously, being very sleepy during the day. Did anything else evolve for you that you started noticing that maybe was not as big an issue or not a really standout issue for you as the years progressed?
One thing, it sounds funny now looking back that it wasn't a big issue, just because I was always rushing off to the next thing. I was always being dragged out of bed by whoever or 5 alarms in. But I really did wake up with a headache almost every single morning. And I didn't know that that was a symptom of anything. And I just went on my way and eventually it resolved. But then as I'm thinking back, that was something that I experienced. And I do still experience that from time to time with my CPAP. But it was really mostly the sleepiness, and really, truly, I could fall asleep anytime, anywhere, and kind of was known for that, with my friends and family, etc. If my friends were texting me and I didn't, all of a sudden wasn't responding, they knew I was asleep. It didn't matter what time it was. So those were the main symptoms that I experienced.
Okay, so we have brain fog, we have excessive daytime sleepiness, we have headaches, which is incredibly common in women. Again, something that is not on the Stop Bang questionnaire, right?
Yeah, I don't think I actually meet the criteria on the Stop Bang questionnaire for sleep.
Well, I'm going to just guess based on knowing your body habitus and you don't have a giant neck, and I don't see this like super abnormally recessed jaw or any of those things. You don't have hypertension, you're a woman, you're not older. Yeah, you basically, it's like, why would we screen you?
Yeah.
You do have the sleepiness component.
Sleepiness scale. I think everybody should be given that just baseline at every PCP appointment, because once I finally saw that, I had to just actually laugh to myself because I was like the highest likelihood of falling asleep on every single item, and it really kind of brought everything full circle for me. And when I showed it to the doctor, he was like, okay, yeah, that's not normal. And then we went along.
Interesting. Believe it or not, it's not as sensitive for ladies.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
because the tiredness and fatigue that will often be described may truly be a sense of fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
So for women, they just may not have the truly sleepy component, or they may not perceive that they're as sleepy, even if an outside observer is like, whoa, like sometimes, and I've had that where people are maybe less aware subjectively of what's really going on. Now, I'm curious, did you undergo a home sleep apnea test, or did they bring you to the sleep lab in order to diagnose your sleep apnea?
I did just a home sleep test,
okay.
which was very convenient. It was actually right after everything shut down from COVID. So I don't know if maybe they were going to have me go into a lab and then that changed things, or if they were always going to start out with that. But it was so convenient. I just did one night, a home sleep test, and then couldn't believe it when I saw the results, honestly, because I thought it was just another test I was going to run that there was going to be no answer to, and I was just going to continue on my journey. And so I was shocked when I saw the results.
Ooh, what were the results?
Well, actually, I was just thinking, and I was looking at my notes here of what I wanted to bring up to you. Something else that I have learned that is true for my case is I have mild sleep apnea, but my symptoms and the way that it impacted my functioning before I was diagnosed was severe. It really impacted my day-to-day functioning despite having mild sleep apnea. So my AHI was 9, maybe 9.2, 9.4. It was under 10. So I fall in the mild category. But,
whoa. Okay. This is such a great teaching point. It's beyond measure. Okay. So another thing that sometimes happens, and I've had this happen to me a couple times on, not so much, I think, because of my style of seeing patients, but I've definitely seen folks who maybe I'm the second or third opinion over the course of years. And they'll say, well, it was just mild, right? And even if you're a primary care and maybe you're not used to managing sleep apnea, by the way, you don't have to manage it yourself, though I do know in certain parts of the country, you just may be the only kind of person in town. The key point here, there's a couple of key points. One being that women historically will be much more symptomatic with less severe sleep apnea. So just mild in a woman who bothered to raise to you, perhaps on several occasions, that they are feeling tired and they're having headaches in the morning, pause and go, oh, snap. This could really, really, I should really be taking that person's symptoms seriously. So you need to marry what the clinical picture is and with the actual numbers and not take the two. The other point, too, is it's wonderful that they were able to pick it up on home sleep apnea test. And that is traditionally, quite frankly, just because I can't order what I feel like ordering. Like I got to kind of go with whatever insurance is willing to cover often. Home sleep apnea tests are very convenient. People tend to sleep better in the comfort of their own home unless there's some maybe insomnia issue and they don't like their home environment, which can happen too. Some people are like, oh, I'm out of my house. Now I'm sleeping great. What does that tell you, right? But if it's missed in a woman who's fatigued on a home sleep apnea test, I just want to highlight for patients or, people who are listening going, oh, maybe this is me, and they've had a negative home sleep test, make sure that you're going the extra mile in confirming the results. There are such things as home polysomnograms. There's also certain types of home sleep apnea tests that will monitor you for several days, a multi-night study. They're probably going to be an out-of-pocket cost, honestly, just because there's no CPT code for home PSGs right now. And then the flip side is the reimbursement for home sleep apnea tests tends to not be that great. in certain units, like it's going to be more expensive. So unless you have a volume of people, right, we're so volume oriented in healthcare, going to disagree that that's a great model, but nonetheless, it is the model that we live in, that you need to be able to justify where your bottom line is in your costs. So again, it may be something that is out of the realm of possibility, but there are ways to get that type of testing done. But if you can get insurance to approve it, and it's not going to break your personal bank, depending on what your, copay is going to be for a prior auth in-lab sleep study, it is, I would highly advise that whoever's listening who's had symptoms, has no answers, home sleep apnea test is negative, just confirm, and go to the lab. Because there's a lot of benefit to that. One being, Kristen, that even with all of your symptoms, right? If it was a negative home sleep apnea test, my concern for you would be, hey, does this young woman have something like narcolepsy or idiopathic hypersomnia? Is there another sleep disorder going on here? And we can confirm that there is not in the lab. But the other thing too is you may be dealing with periodic limb movements or other things that are going on that you're not even aware of that could potentially impact the quality of your sleep. So for these other reasons, sleep apnea is not the only sleep disorder. That's just something I wanted to hit a pause on and emphasize. So but that's great when you can catch it on that one. Yes. And again, your numbers on that particular night, because it can vary night to night, showed mild. And here you are, a serious patient advocate.
Things have changed so dramatically for me in such a positive way since I've been on CPAP, which I know some people have difficulty adjusting. I'm emotionally attached to my CPAP, I always say, because that's made such a difference for me. And if it had continued to be missed, I would keep going through my day, dragging through my days in a fog of sleepiness. And it really has changed that for me. I wake up and I can recognize and feel as if I had slept, which seems funny for people that haven't experienced that, but it's such a different feeling for me.
And can you also describe what it's like to be a world traveler with CPAP? Do you have any words of wisdom for people? I think people get nervous. One of the things that I have done routinely for my patients, I actually had a printed out template for patients, was it's not universal. I think it's more common in Europe. Very much less common in Asian countries often, even though there's a ton of sleep apnea. They just need to be educated on it. I've had a lot of people go, oh my God, they think I'm like bringing a bomb on the airplane.
Oh, really?
And I got to give them notes that say, my doctor says I got to use this machine and it's allowed on this airplane. Yeah. And then people tend to chill out. I don't know if you run into that. But I was also, a lot of people are like really afraid that their machine is going to like blow up or something because they're using different plugs. Dismantle some of that.
Yeah. So I've always loved to travel. I just basically work so that I have money to travel. It's always just been my passion. So when I got diagnosed, I was like, well, this is not going to stop me. And I'm just going to bring this thing along with me. And that's why I started my Instagram account, and that it's I've connected with so many people unexpectedly, but I just wanted to sort of entertain myself and take pictures everywhere that I brought my CPAP. But there are definitely some things it's not difficult to travel with your CPAP, but you just have to be prepared. I've learned a lot about if you're going to use it on a flight, you can use it on an overnight flight, but you can't plug it into the in-seat power outlet. You need, for 99% of planes, you need, an external battery. And some airlines want you to tell them in advance, and some airlines don't care. So I always look up in advance the airline that I'm going to be flying on. You can usually just type in medical equipment or assistive devices, and they'll have a whole list if there's anything that you need to do, to show them or prove to them that you need this machine. But ResMed, I have a ResMed machine. ResMed does have on their website an FAA compliance letter that you can find and download. You can even pull it up on your phone if you ever get any questions and you feel like you are not prepared. That basically just says, this is medical equipment, it's medically necessary, and it's not going to interfere with the operation of any aircraft if you're ever questioned. I have never been stopped or questioned. Maybe once going through security, someone just verified that it was medical equipment, and that's it. More so, I end up having some nice teaching moments and conversations with the security agents. Most recently, my home airport is Boston, and shout out to the TSA people there because they're always so nice to me when I bring through my CPAP. And the guy did say recently, "Oh, is that a CPAP? I just got prescribed one. I'm about to be starting a CPAP." And then I was actually going to do something for Project Sleep. So I told him all about Project Sleep, and hopefully he looked them up after. But when you get to whichever destination you're going to, I've gone so far to Central America, South America, and Europe. Haven't made it over to Asia or Africa with my CPAP. Oh, and I did go to New Zealand and Australia. You just have to look up, the wattage of where you're going to make sure that your machine supports that voltage. And the majority of CPAP machines are dual voltage, meaning that they are able to support the US outlet voltage as well as the outlets that the rest of the world use. You just need an adapter so that you can change it so it literally fits in.
And I believe ResMed, definitely their units are all kind of compliant. But what I didn't know is that I have been having to create my own little template. And meanwhile, I could just pull it off of ResMed.
Yeah, it's on there.
I'm going to do that so that now it's in my bucket. So if anybody ever asks me, I can just be like, here you go. Here's your letter. Bye-bye. You know, and have... God, I've written so many letters. I had no idea. Could have improved Dr. Kole's workflow.
I did have to get a letter from my sleep doctor when I went to New Zealand this past winter, not for my CPAP, but because, and we didn't get into this yet, but I do have an as-needed wakefulness medication, modafinil, that is in certain countries considered a controlled substance. So I did have to look up the customs, requirements when I was going somewhere. So if anyone's on any kind of medication for a sleep disorder, I know a lot of narcolepsy medications fall under that as well. You have to just make sure if you're bringing it into the country that you don't need any kind of special approval for it. So I needed, by the time I got to customs, they literally didn't care. I was like, oh, but I have this letter. They didn't care at all. But I needed a letter from my doctor that says, Kristen is prescribed modafinil, blah, 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 blah. She's under my care and it's for this reason. And then they are supposed to just sort of let you through.
All right. Well, I'm going to be curious to see what your experiences are when you go to the Asian countries, because that's the one thing where my patients have definitely said it. But again, another cool teaching point that you're sharing with folks, which is even with mild sleep apnea, sometimes the sleepiness component, i.e. the tiredness, the fatigue, even when you're getting sufficient sleep, even when you're using your machine, for some folks, and there's been some studies looking at functional MRIs and things of the head showing that for some people, the wake centers of the brain can actually kind of not be functioning well. That could be a product of just seeing routine low oxygen levels, some damage to the brain that is caused by that. And so they can have some residual sleepiness issues. And even when they are very compliant. So sometimes medications are indicated. So anyone listening, it's definitely something that can be considered if you need it. And your sleep doctor or your primary care can definitely prescribe you those types of medications. There may come a point where it might be worth it to be retested and maybe even be tested for a comorbid condition, especially if it's really profound and you're really compliant. But don't take it to mean that CPAP's a waste of time or it's not working at all, because clearly you derived a huge amount of benefit. It's just that sometimes you need a little assistance. And I've definitely had patients that are that I've had to do that for. And again, to see them brighten up and have a quality of life.
Yeah.
That's why I moved my career from like critical care stuff to being and seeing patients that are primarily just focusing on sleep, because quite frankly, it's the most rewarding thing for me. And I love that now that I'm kind of in doing my own thing. I see so many folks like you who are healthy and young and really aspire to have great sleep. And I'm like, I'm catching you before you have hypertension and diabetes and all the comorbidities and all that stuff. And it's such a blessing to meet folks like you. Yeah. So you are just, again, amazing. So excited to have you on the show. Do you have any final words that you'd like to leave anyone with?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was such a great opportunity. What I love about the sleep community. I fell into it like via Instagram. I never expected to meet and connect with so many people, but it really is a special community between the patients, the providers, the doctors like yourself. There's such connection between all of us. That's what I feel. And it really goes a long way that the providers and the researchers and people that are treating us really want to hear the patient experience. So thank you for having me on and giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. And this is also like an invitation. So even if you don't have any formal sleep training and you're a professional going, wow, this episode really resonated with me. Like, I think, dude, be my friend. Be Kristen's friend. Let's be friends.
We're very welcoming.
Let's amplify the message of just how important sleep health is and highlight these different disorders. I mean, obstructive sleep apnea just happens to be wicked common, and yet we still miss it when it's like right in front of our face. Mm-hmm. And we're all guilty of it. I mean, I got schooled by an older woman with great airway, just had a little bit of trouble sleeping. And I was like, I don't really think you have sleep apnea. And I am telling you, her dentist did a test.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And she came back to tell me her dentist did a test, and now she's on an oral appliance. And I was like, don't I feel stupid? Oh. So that was a learning experience. Nothing hurts more than having your ego bruised. So thank you for that experience to that lovely lady. But yeah, I mean, let's just all stick together, sleep community folks. It's so great to have you in my orbit, Kristen. I'm so looking forward to Sleep 2026, connecting with you. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Struggling with sleep? Dr. Kole is here to help. Whether you need a comprehensive sleep coaching program, suspect you have sleep apnea, or simply seeking a second opinion, she's available for consultation in New Jersey, New York, California, and Georgia, with more states coming soon. Schedule your free 10-minute review of services today to find out which visit is right for you at AskTheSleepMD.com. and start your journey to better sleep with a trusted sleep expert.
Please be advised that the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for personalized guidance. For my full disclaimer, please visit AskTheSleepMD.com, and while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my free newsletter. Sweet dreams and happy listening.